2, 3, 4, hit it. 1, 2, 2.
You're now listening to the legendary Vinyl Esquire.
Hit it.
DJStube.net.
Vinyl Esquire.
The first groove was hype, so I made more music. So yo, take a step back. No, I'm on track and I can't hold
Vinyl
back.
Esquire.
Podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. Vinyl Esquire with DJ Rip.
Just let it roll, let it roll. Just let it roll, let it roll. Just let it roll, let it roll.
You're now listening to the legendary Vinyl Esquire. You're now listening to the legendary Vinyl Esquire.
Get that humbug. Check the DJ, cause he's killing it. Check the DJ, cause he's killing it. Check the DJ, cause he's killing it. And then Dada's doing it.
Vinyl Esquire. Culture, truth, music.
Vinyl Esquire.
Make me move. H-O-U-F-E. Make me move. H-O-U-F-E. 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 H-O-U-F-E.
Vinyl Esquire.
The podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. Vinyl Esquire with DJ Rip.
H-O-U-F-E. H-O-U-F-E. You're in the mix.
Vinyl Esquire. Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, the podcast that delivers culture, truth, music. Would you join me, please, in welcoming DJ Rip?
Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire. And Vinyl Esquire is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. And my name is DJ Rip. And without further ado, I would like to welcome to Vinyl Esquire, the legendary DJ, producer, artist, the house icon, the legendary DJ Doug Lazy.
What's good, Rip? What's up, bro?
Doug, how you doing, man? How's things?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good. I got my family, and it's just all good, man. Everything is good. We moving and shaking. You know what I mean?
Great. So family's good. Everybody's safe, healthy. Everything is well. Yes.
Yes, indeed, brother.
Wonderful. Well, listen, Doug, I want to thank you for allowing me to interview you for Vinyl Esquire. Vinyl Esquire is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and always honors our legends. And you are a legendary DJ, and what you've done for the house community is insane. So let's get right to it. Cool?
Cool. Let's go.
All right, I want to go all the way back to the beginning. So, Doug, can you tell me who or what made you want to be a DJ?
Actually, when I was at my grandmother's house in Queens, New York, the first time I was exposed to like DJing, I went up the block. I knew nothing about, turntables or anything. And in my friend's garage, some of his friends that came over, and they had a bunch of equipment set up, like two turntables and a mixer, which I didn't know what it was at the time. But everything was like mismatched. Like one turntable was old, and the other one was like some little funny looking one. And I remember it was like a bunch of stuff stacked up. And I sat there and I watched what they were doing. And they would just, it wasn't mixing at the time. They were just like going from one record to the other. And I don't know what it was about that. I just, I just got hooked because I sat there and watched them the whole time they were there, not really knowing what's going on, but that was my first, I guess, movement into seeing, the actual turntables and stuff like that. And I was hooked from there, even though I didn't know what was going on.
Got you. Okay, so what year would you say you started DJing, and what was your first DJ name?
I would say, really, DJing, I would say, man, in the late 70s, maybe like 78, I kind of, that's when I first really tried to, I got like the little Radio Shack mixer and a turntable, and then I had a tape deck on the other side. So it was like maybe late 70s. And I didn't have a name at the time because, like I said, I was still like just trying to learn how to mix. I was just messing around really. But I guess when the 1980 rolled around, My first name that I can remember was I went by G Steady, and that was kind of whack. But my first name is Gene, which a lot of people don't know that. But I go by my middle name is Douglas, so I hate the name Gene. So that's something most people don't know. But my name is Douglas. So I go by Doug Lazy now. But G Steady was like really the first name, and nobody was checking for me or anything. Because I was in the Maryland area. A lot of people think I'm from New York. My grandmother is my grandmother, and some of my family was in New York, so I used to visit a lot. But I'm originally, the D.C. area was where I grew up. So D.C., Maryland, people weren't really checking for like mixes, and they didn't even know what was going on. So I was kind of like a loner in that regard, and pretty much, just started getting better, just by messing around. And when I would come to New York, I would like listen to the radio, and they would mix on the radio and stuff like that. So I would go back and try to really get into it and do my own thing.
Okay, gotcha. And, did you have any local or national inspirations from the DJ side? Now, again, you're going back and forth, as you're saying, from New York to the D.C. area.
Yes.
Did you have any local or even national, inspirations as far as the DJ world?
Really, I would say, I don't know if you remember, but way back in New York, where really my first, I could say there was an inspiration, was a guy named Shep Pettibone. And he was used to be on Kiss FM, if I remember right. And I used to hear his mixes because they were like, he was blowing up because he would have master mixes, and they would play them like during the day or throughout the day, and I would record those, and then come back and try to do mixes and back and forth in Maryland and New York. And I could say actually the guys that really changed my life, Shep Pettibone was the initial one that I got into mixing on radio. But as far as like who really inspired me would be the Latin Rascals, because they used to do edit mixes where they would cut tape, and so they could do stuff that you do with a sample these days. They would do with tape, like repeating stuff and switching up songs real quick. And I heard that, and it blew my mind, and I could not figure out how to do it. So when I got back to Maryland, me being I really, like, if I wanted to know something, I would go all out to try and find it. So I kept hearing about the Latin Rascals. I would read about them because if I remember right, they were working with, I think it was with Arthur Baker at the time. I'm not sure, but it was a studio called Shakedown Studios. Okay. I actually called the studio, and I was like, yeah, can I speak to the Latin Rascals? And the lady was like, hold. And one of them got on, I don't know if, I think it was Aldo. It might have been Tony Moran. I'm not sure which one it was, because they would just said, they didn't say their name, but at talking to him, he said, I asked him, how could I do that? I'm a DJ, in the Maryland area. And he told me, he said, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but what I will tell you is that it's cutting tape. Mm-hmm. And from that, he talked to you for a minute. It was real cool, but it shook me up, because I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. So I actually figured it out on my own. I bought a reel-to-reel tape machine in Maryland, and I took it home and I tried to, figure out how it was, and I couldn't. So I took it back, and I'll never forget this. This is what changed my life. I took it back to the store, and they you have to wait like a week to get your refund. But I actually went back a couple of days later, and I said, can I get it back? And they gave it to me. They gave it back to me, and we canceled the refund and everything. So I took it home, and I figured it out by using a splicing block that you had to actually measure the beats, like from a kick to a snare, like I would mark that, each one of those sounds, and then if I wanted to make it fast, like I would mark in between those. Mm-hmm. So basically it's about measurements, and I marked them on the splicing block, and as soon as I figured it out, I knew the key to doing it, and I went crazy with it. So I just wow. That was how I really got most of my jobs that I got in radio, because I started working at an AM station in Baltimore called WEBB. I sent the tape in, and they actually played the mix and then hit me up. And that's how I got involved in radio. It was an AM station. Baltimore was like way ahead of their time. They were way ahead of the DC area as far as mixing. Baltimore's always been like, they were mixing and all kinds of things, you know, even when I would be in my area in Silver Spring, in that area, which is about 35, 40 minutes from Baltimore. It's like two worlds, two different worlds.
Absolutely.
DC, you know, so it's I would be in my area and I could pick up WEBB up until like 6 o'clock p.m. and they would cut the power down in Baltimore, so you couldn't hear it after that. So I would hear the mixes, and that's how I got it. That was my first adventure in the radio, and I managed to get ahead because I was doing mixes that were more advanced. I was like cutting tape, so I could have in a 5-minute master mix, I could have 15, 20 songs. And I would, just like the Latin Rascals, I pretty much was biting how they did it.
Right,
you know, because I was such a fan. But I kind of developed my style. If you didn't know, it's like each city had their set of. It was at one point had a set of DJs that knew how to edit, and they would be on the radio, like from Philly, New York, probably in Cali. It was like, so in the Maryland area, Maryland DC area, it was me and a guy called Jeffrey C. Who used to edit, and he's actually super dope. You know, I thought I was really the only one doing the edit mixes, but he was actually doing them also. So we actually teamed up a couple of times and did some mixes together. So we like good friends to this day, and you know what I mean. We still involved in music and everything. But that was really my adventure in the radio, man. And I was able to go to any city, like go wherever I would move to, I could get on the radio because I always had an advanced way of mixing.
Gotcha.
You know, I got on the PGC through the edits and everything. So that, you know, I was fortunate that I went back and got that reel to reel, because that was a turning point in my life, man. Because if I didn't get that, I probably wouldn't have even, you know, got into radio or anything. So
wow. Okay,
I was blessed. Yeah.
So I'm gonna back up a little bit, but okay. So by the way, the Latin Rascals, phenomenal, incredible DJs,
yes,
remixers. I mean, the editing, those mega mixes, incredible, no question. I was a fan. I loved it all as well. Okay. Yes. But so you're from the DC, the DMV as they call it, right? You're from the DC, Virginia, Maryland area. By the way, I lived there for 7 years.
There you go.
So I lived in Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah. So I totally get it. I understand the difference between DC and Baltimore. It's it's like two different worlds, and they're only an hour away from each other, right?
It is.
So now, here's what I would like to get to. I want to know, how did you become Doug Lazy? Okay, but hold on though. So it's very interesting. DC is known for go-go music, right?
Right.
Not house music. Now, Baltimore is known for house music, right?
Right.
So you know, you have Frank Ski, which I'm assuming was either some kind of inspiration to you, or you worked with him or something, right? And
absolutely.
You know, legendary Frank Ski. So
absolutely.
So can you just kind of, you know, paint the picture for me on, you know, how you become Doug Lazy and this path, and what got you into producing and got you into house music when go-go is so strong in that particular area, right? So talk to me about how you got into this and how you became Doug Lazy.
Well, really, it's just in my DJing on I was mixing on WPGC for a good while, and I was going by Mean Gene. That was the name they gave me on there. So I was doing the edit mixes. So really, me being a DJ also, I started to really get into house music because of the fact that, you know, I was still associated with Baltimore, because that's where my radio career began.
Okay.
And so, of course, I love, you know, Baltimore has been house. They've been rocking house forever. So I always loved that, you know, with like just hearing it on the radio. They used to Frank, you know, through Frank Ski was a big, huge inspiration, you know, for that whole area. So I could really say, you know, he's part of my life change also, you know what I mean? And it's just hearing house, and then, you know, coming to New York and hearing house pick up. I wanted to actually record some house beats. I got into production through my editing. I used to edit beats together, besides the mixes. I used to take a kick and a snare and edit them together. And then I started getting into like multi-track mixing and stuff like that. So I was able to actually put songs or put tracks together, I would say. So I got kind of good at making beats, early on even with the primitive equipment I had. And from there, I just started getting in the house, man. Even being in the DC area with go-go was, the main thing, which I love go-go. If you're from DC, it's in you.
Right,
so,
right.
But I always had an open mind to and listen to other stuff also. So I was I got into the Doug Lazy thing happened for me because when one day actually there was a beat that was Let It Roll. That I used for Let It Roll. It was the bell loop that the Power used, and it's actually by Mantronic. It was from a record called King of the Beats.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And so what made me, I was just like doing house beats and stuff like that, not really planning for anybody, but I used to have a mix show with LBD on the radio, and I played that bell loop as I looped it in my mixer, and I played it while he talked over it. And just as an instrumental, and I just kept playing it. And then when we went to commercial break, he came in the room and asked me, he said, what was that beat that you were just playing with the bells? And he said, because I got like 3 or 4 calls on there, people asking what that was. And I was like, so that's what I literally took that beat and I went into the studio, which is the PGC had studios with, like, it wasn't really for making music, but it was more for like, you could put stuff together. And since I knew how to edit and stuff, I actually looped up the bell loop. I sped it up, and then I started making a beat out of it. I added like kick, snare, and some drums to it, and really came up with like the bare I guess version of Let It Roll. It wasn't the one you hear, but it had the loop in it, and it was serious. So I was like, yo, this is crazy. So one of the DJs at the station, my boy Sir Charles Dixon,
yes, sir,
actually heard it, and he was like, yo, I need to hook you up with Vaughn Mason. And I was like, from Bounce Rock Skate Roll? I said, yeah. I said, I'm not. Where does he live? He said he lives in D.C. I was like, oh, for real?
Right.
So I was like,
rest in peace to Vaughn Mason,
yeah, rest
another
in peace
legend.
to Vaughn Mason, man.
Yes,
Legend. And I was like, yo, I said, yeah, let's go. But it was by that time I wasn't even thinking about the beat. I'm like, I just want to beat Vaughn because that Bounce Rock Skate Roll, one of my everybody loves that joint. So
right. He took
me down. We met up, man, and actually, long story short, Vaughn had studios inside of his house, and we agreed. I was like, yo, I'm gonna put this beat together, and I got a guy that's gonna rap because I wasn't even thinking about doing no rap or anything like that.
So wait, so would you say that this was the first record you ever recorded?
Yeah, as far as myself,
right?
As far as myself, like as far as Doug Lazy, like I by that time I had done some like hip hop stuff, but it was more on the producer tip, Like I go back right before Doug Lazy came out. I don't know if you're familiar with Stezo.
Absolutely.
Rest in peace also.
Rest in peace,
people,
yes.
Yeah, people don't know I got 2 cuts on the Crazy Noise album. And
wow.
And I did those right before I did got into Doug Lazy situation.
So I don't want to cut you off. My apologies.
Yeah.
I want to jump. We'll get back to the Vaughn Mason story in 1 second.
Gotcha.
Okay. So what year did you start in radio?
In radio, I would say 83.
Gotcha.
83, because I just got out of high school. I'm an old head. I just got out of high school, but
sure.
I went in. I was 17 when that tape first got played on WEBB. So that was a year. So I would say around 83, and then I was on PGC. I did EBB for years, and then on WPGC I got on there in 1987, if I remember right, because they had switched formats and they became a station to play more like R&B and club stuff. So I managed to get on there. I sent the tape in to them, and that's where I pretty much got into radio in the FM realm. PGC has always been in my heart because that's where my first FM experience, and I've dealt with them for years, you know.
Got you.
And a lot of legends came from that station. So.
Absolutely. Okay, so you started in the late 70s. You said DJ Gene was your first DJ name, right?
G Steady.
Oh, G Steady.
Yeah. My first name is Gene.
That's okay. Right. Okay. Okay. So DJ G Steady. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So another question. What were you using to produce the records? Now I understand. You know, you just said that you were using the reel-to-reel. You were chopping the tape for the edits.
Yeah.
But you said you took that loop, and then you went in there and you started adding drums. What were you using to build out the production at first?
Okay, well, you mean for Let It Roll?
I mean, just period.
Period.
Yeah. You said you produced a few records on the Stezo record.
Oh yeah.
So what were you using for production? In the beginning.
Actually, I was looping. Like the radio station had a mixer that did looping, and also they had a rack mount sampling type. It had sampling seconds on it. I think it was a Yamaha thing, if I remember. So that's how I would sit there and literally tap the beat, and then I would edit. Like if I wanted to be 120 beats a minute, I would find a record that was that speed, and I would just I would loop the kick and snare. And then I would have, it was more so, it was almost like I was DJing early on. Like when I went in there and put that bell loop down, I actually had to put the kick and snare down with it. I just sampled those, or I actually took them from records, like a kick and a snare, and I would just make it, put an edit loop on it and match them up. And, so cause I was always been very good at like blending and DJing. So it was not a problem for me to match them up. That's why I said that first version of Let It Roll, nobody would ever heard because it was so rough, but you could see the potential in it.
Right. And, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so what would you say the first record that you produced? You just brought up Stezo, rest in peace.
Yes.
What was the first records that you produced and got an opportunity, to work with other artists prior to you being Doug Lazy and becoming an artist yourself?
Well, there was a group in Baltimore that I didn't actually produce it. I did an edit mix on it, so I don't know if that would count. But that was my first venture into actually having something I did on record. It was the song was called "Ari on the Air." It's by Level 4, and I did the edit mix on it. But as far as production, my first production would be Stezo, and I had to take the actual records up to the studio because, like I said, I didn't have equipment at that time. I had looped them together, and through chopping and stuff like that, I was able to put the beat together. But actually, when I went to Studio 1212, I got to work with legendary Paul C. Rest in peace. Also,
yes, sir.
They were in the studio. You were in the studio with Stezo, so I actually went from Maryland. I got in the studio session with them, and me being a young producer, you have to understand the vibe back then. Like New York is top of the world, and me coming from anywhere from outside of New York is almost like you got to be kind of humble going in.
Absolutely.
So I was nervous going into the studio, but Stezo and them, they could probably see that they were real cool, the whole crew, is Jim Slice and the dude Chris and Paul C. So we actually put the joints together. I brought the records and we actually put them together in the studio the way I had it. And of course, Paul C added some flavors, like on the song Freak the Funk. He put a couple of, ear candy things in there. And actually, if you listen to those songs out there, Bring the Horns and Freak the Funk, you could see where it's like a loop, but you could tell I had to chop it up and everything. Use we use a sampler then in the studio, but I had to do it beforehand. I had to use reel to reel. So
wow,
I really it was once we got it in there, Paul C, of course, he made it shine. You know what I mean? He did something I couldn't do.
Right.
Because he was already legendary doing this stuff. So that was my first venture into it, man. And Freak the Funk and Bring the Horns.
That's amazing. Freak the Funk is a classic for Stezo.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Indeed. The video, I love it. So,
absolutely,
it's crazy.
And that's amazing. So,
and also, real quick, I wanted to tell you, the Baltimore name when I was at WEBB, I went by Vicious V, And that was actually the name that Chuck Max, who was the big DJ then, who was playing the mixes, he actually threw that name. And he said, Vicious V, because I was like, I don't have a name. I didn't want to use G Steady. So it's just that's my first. You might see Vicious V on the first Stezo on the record, but on the remix you'll see like a Doug Lazy remix. But it's the same person. Gotcha. It's just at the time I think they capitalized because that Doug Lazy, I was coming out like, it's sort of the same time, right after Stezo came out. That's when I started, getting the Doug Lazy buzz. So, if anybody gets confused, you'll see Vicious V on it, and also Doug Lazy. So I just wanted to point that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump back to Vaughn Mason. By the way,
gotcha.
Rest in peace to the legend.
Indeed.
Incredible funk producer, disco. Yep. I got the honor to meet Vaughn at his place. He actually came to my house also. Wow. when I was in Maryland. So, rest in peace to the legend. That's absolutely amazing. So now let's talk let's get into, the experience going over Vaughn Mason's studio recording. And I'm assuming that that's the birth of Let It Roll, because
yes,
I want you to talk to me about Let It Roll. How did Let It Roll came out in 1989, if I'm not mistaken, on Atlantic Records.
Right. Initially on Grove Street, which was Vaughn's label.
Okay, here's my point. Talk to me about how Let It Roll became a record, the Vaughn Mason experience, his label, how you got to deal with Atlantic. Talk to me about this.
Okay, well, it's crazy because, like I was saying, when I went and actually put the record together, put Let It Roll together at Vaughn's house, he had, I had to, it's crazy because Vaughn, although he had a studio, I needed more. He had the machine he had. I needed to. I didn't sync anything up, so I put the bell loop inside of his little digital sampler. Kind of they had like similar to the one at the station. And if you listen to Let It Roll, a lot of people don't know this. The bell loop is off like many times during the song from the beat, because I literally every 4 bars I had a ding 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 ding. Just that I had to tap it the whole way through the song to match the little drum beat I put together. But it's crazy. I actually like that. Some DJs say, yo, it gives it like a raw sound.
Right.
That was kind of off. And so it was another person that was supposed to actually do the lyrics to come in and rap, but he did not. He wasn't able to make it to the studio. And, so I was like, Vaughn was like, yo, why don't you do it? Because Vaughn is pretty much like, let's get this done. I ain't, right. He been in the business forever. So he's like, yo, why don't you do it? I was like, I don't rap. So he said, no, you go ahead and do it. So I had actually written the rhymes for the guy who was supposed to sing, to do the lyrics. I had actually written the rhymes, but I just went in there and I did them myself. And I had, it's crazy because if you listen to the lyrics, no. Let me correct that. I had to come back. He said, why don't you do it? And I said, okay, I'll just do it. So I wound up being the one that was going to be on the record. So I actually took those lyrics I wrote, and I actually kept, once we left the studio session that time, I went and I kept practicing them because, like I said, me not being an MC or whatever, I just kept practicing, and I would ride around in my car, and I had 4 verses I wrote. And I said I had to drive around until I did all 4 verses without messing up. And so I was riding around for hours. I never forget that. And then even though I messed the last word up, I had to start over. So by the time I actually got it and went in the studio to record it, Let It Roll was done in one take. The entire song, one take, no edits, anything. Matter of fact, you hear one mess up in the song, and I said, I think it was the first verse, I said, so when the music, instead of music, I said, so when the music's got your soul, yo, just let it roll. And Vaughn was like, yo, leave it, good ass character. So I did that whole thing in one take, all 4 verses, and then I went back to actually try and actually add elements to it, and it wound up. The bass line, which was legendary, that everybody loved, wasn't even in Let It Roll. It was just the bells and the 808, the TR-808 drum pattern I put together, and some of the pianos, like dun 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 dun. I had actually played those. That's a remake from the classic house joint. So before it ended, when we wrapped it up, I said, yo, it needs some bass line, needs something. Someone's missing. So Vaughn said, well, try and come up with something quick. So I just did 3 notes. I was like, dum, 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 dum. And I played that. He said, go ahead and put that in. And I'm thankful to Vaughn because Vaughn, him being like, yo, let's get this done, he didn't give me time to sit there and trying to figure out what I was going to do. So that's why the bass line is so easy.
Right.
Excuse me, but it's so powerful. It's just the pattern that it's playing. So it's just, that we added that, and that was the finishing touches on it. And he's like, what name you want to use? And some people, they used to call me like Lazy Boy Productions, because sometimes I used to be like slow getting the mix done. And but it was, it was just like a joke. But I say, yo, I was like, I'm not gonna use Lazy Boy because, of course, it's the that's a sofa company, if I'm you know what I mean. So
right.
I said, I'm just gonna go by Doug Lazy. It's just something that just came out. I said, let me just go Doug Lazy, and that's what it was. And Vaughn's like, all right, because Vaughn wanted me to use my real name. I said, no, I can't use my real name.
Right.
Like, so that's pretty much is how the Doug Lazy situation came. And there was no, like, it's really no story to the other. I just blurted out. I said, yo, I'm gonna go by Doug Lazy, and that's where, that's how it started. So
you ended up putting out this record first on Vaughn's label.
On Vaughn's label, Grove Street Records.
And then it came out on Atlantic. So how did you go from the independent side to getting the deal?
Well, actually, man, it was so fast. If from what I heard, there was like they used to send out reps, with the labels and to look for talent. Back in the day, I don't know if they do that now, but back in the day, they would send out reps, and somebody heard Let It Roll, I guess, in a club, because Vaughn was getting the record out to DJs. And because it was such an instant reaction record, like DJs would say, yo, I played that record and it packed the floor, which is crazy for the first time with people hearing it. And it was so powerful that Vaughn, this person contacted us, and he was, I guess, a rep for Atlantic. And I guess Vaughn put that deal together, because he, not soon after he released it, he was like, yo, we're going to get you on Atlantic Records. You might have I'm like, and I didn't believe it because I'm like, yo, that's a major label. And
right.
Major label, super big deal back in the day. I mean, that's like, chances are you ain't going to get on a major label if you're an artist. It's very rare, the few that make it through. So when he told me that, I was like kind of shocked because it was all, man, Rip, it was such a whirlwind. That's why to this day, I'm like, I be forgetting stuff like, oh, wait a minute, that happened. It was so fast because even after we dropped the record, I was in London doing a promo tour. Vaughn had set that up because he was doing he's Ray's at the time who did Break for Love. He was actually the person behind that.
Right.
I don't know if you remember the classic. So
Absolutely.
that was huge in London. So he actually let It Roll piggyback off of that, which he was smart. Because even on his record label, it said Ray's presents Doug Lazy. So he used that name, him being a businessman, he used that name to actually add, so I guess some validity to my name.
Right.
And it was such a crazy thing, man. Even doing my first show, I tell people this, they laugh at it. My first show was an absolute disaster because I'd never been on stage as an artist, and my first show was at the Tunnel in New York, which if you ain't performing right, you might not make it out of there. So I'm like, I was just scared to death, man. And Vaughn, that was a changing point in my life. And I tell people, if I had to think about one moment in my life where it was a turning point. He convinced me to do that show because at first I was like, nah, I've never been on stage. He said, well, look, this record is burning up, and we need to, get you out there. This thing is going to be a hit. So you're going to have shows. So either you're going to do them or not do them. And he kept on me about it. And finally I was like, I agree. Because he told me, he said, yo, you're not going to, what's the worst that could happen? It could get booed and that's about it. And he convinced me to do it. He actually drove with me to New York, and he drove me to New York. Actually, I rode with him. He was the whole way. He's like, pumped me up. Yo, you know, you could do it. You could do it. I went around and forgot the clothes I was supposed to wear. I was so nervous. Forgot the clothes I was supposed to wear. So I had to go on stage with the stuff that I wore there, which was like some old shorts and a T-shirt and a hat. And it was a disaster. I got up there. I stood in one place, did not move, and did the lyrics to Let It Roll over the track. I stood in one place at the edge of the stage. And to this day, I look down, and this girl was at the front. She untied my shoes. You know what I mean? I was standing in one spot, untied my shoes, and my arm was at my side because I was literally probably the most scared moment in my life. And you know, they say, you know, your first show, one of those stories where you think it's going to be bad, but it turns out great. This ain't one of those stories because it was a disaster. I heard some boos, and it was whack, you know, because I had nothing to give as an artist because I wasn't familiar with it. And it was just, I made it out alive, you know, for the tunnel. And, you know, it's just, on the car ride back, you would think I would be upset about it. But Vaughn was like, yo, you did it. You know, you did it. The show is going to get better. You knocked out that, you got rid of that first block. Right. And I actually felt, I was like, yo, I was so charged up to do something else because I'm like, yo, the worst that can happen happened to me already. You know, I had a disastrous show my first time out. So from this point on, it can only go up. And Vaughn instantly, he got two people to be, he went and found two dancers, Loose Bruce and Peaches, and they actually were at my next show. I had a show at this place called the Octagon back in the day. And the next show, because they had taken a lot of the focus off of me, right? And because I was out there with somebody, I actually was kind of moving around more. And the show actually turned out better. It was actually, you know, the people, they liked it. And right after that show, I went on a 2-week promo tour to London. That's when I went over to London. So all during this time, the Atlantic deal was coming together. So, you know, that it was always so much going on at the time that, you know, when I got back, by the time I got back, I did a show every day in London. And with the dancers, they went with me also. And sometimes I'd have 2 or 3 shows in one day. By the time we got back, we were ready to rock in New York because I had lost a lot of my stage fear. Mm-hmm. And I would move around and actually, you know, do my thing better, man. So that's pretty much, you know, from there on, man, it was a great time we got back because I had a show like every weekend. And, you know, like I would be back and forth to New York like every week, man. New York is my main place that I performed at. And I would do sometimes in Florida or, you know, different areas, but it was mostly the East Coast where I was, you know, at. So wow, that's the story, man.
Well, I mean, you know, you ended up with a hit record, and so
I ain't mad at that.
Yeah, you became Doug Lazy, and you overcame those fears, and you know, you learned on the spot, right? So,
indeed.
So that was 1989. So let's say that leads into. I want you to talk to me about Let the Rhythm Pump, Can't Hold Back, and the debut album, Doug Lazy Getting Crazy in 1990.
Okay. Yeah, well, Let the Rhythm Pump, I had actually, while I was in London, right before I left, I had actually put the beat for Let the Rhythm Pump together because by this time, after I started getting money from Let It Roll, I actually went out and bought my first sampler. So now I'm playing with some power now. I got a Roland W30 sampler keyboard. Mm-hmm. And so I learned how to use that. And I put the Let the Rhythm Pump beat together, the piano and the loops and everything. And I had a cassette of it, you know, a cassette back in the day. Right. I took that to London with me. So, you know, I was playing that, you know, and let people hear it. And it's like, yo, this is dope. So when I actually started writing the lyrics, and when I got back from London, I started to record Let the Rhythm Pump. The album wasn't being talked about just yet, but we wanted to get that next single ready. And Let the Rhythm Pump is actually I think that's actually my biggest selling single, even more than Let It Roll, because the Let It Roll got caught up in controversy because, you know, Ray's Presents Doug Lazy and Columbia was Champion Records had in London had rights to Ray's, so they were saying it was a Ray's record and all this. So that kind of killed a lot of my sales with Let It Roll, which would have been my biggest song. But as far as what I'm known for is Let It Roll, but as far as sales, it's Let the Rhythm Pump. So I actually put that together.
And you had no problems with the Big Daddy Kane sample?
No, no. To this day, I haven't had problems with it, and it's amazing because I was like, "Yo, I've never heard anything of it, man."
Now you've met Kane though, yeah?
Oh no, I haven't met Kane in person.
Wow.
Of course, a big fan. I actually on his Instagram. I was going to write, I think I wrote something, Let It Roll vocal changed my life, and I just said that, and I'm actually going to hit him up, man, because he seems to answer people on his Instagram and just, thank him for that. Because people were like, some people thought it was me, and I would always say, nah, I'm saying Let It Roll. I'm saying just let it roll, but the Let It Roll get bold. I tell him, no, that's Big Daddy Kane.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
Wow. So that, so I never had an issue with that. So that,
okay.
Which,
thankfully. Right. Okay. So
that would have been a problem.
So Let the Rhythm Pump was the bigger record for sales. So you have Can't Hold Back and then the debut album, right?
Right. The debut album came out. I started working on an album after, of course you get on, when I'm on Atlantic, they talking about albums. So, right, it's all meshed together because as I was doing the Let the Rhythm Pump, I think that's actually Let It Roll actually got on Atlantic, once that was the first single. So when I did Let the Rhythm Pump, I was actually already it's all in during that time I think I was signed or I was about to get signed. So Let the Rhythm Pump came out as the second single. So yeah, excuse me, because it's so much was going on at the same time. And like sometimes the timelines don't line up.
That's okay.
I'm thinking,
that's okay.
But it's Let It Roll was the first single taken from Grove Street Records. So all during that time, as soon as I did Let the Rhythm Pump, that was the next single. And so I was already signed. So they were talking about an album back then. So I actually started, working on tracks for the album while Let the Rhythm Pump was kicking. And I think my next one after that was HOUSE, which is, I had hit 2 number ones. Let It Roll was number 1 on Billboard Dance. Let the Rhythm Pump hit number 1. And HOUSE was my next single after that. And that hit number 1 too. I was fortunate that hit number 1 when it did because at the same time, CNC Music Factory song was coming up. So they obliterated the charts with the classic song.
Right.
They tore the charts. So I got right in before on the dance chart number 1 before that. And once that took over, CNC they dominated. So it's that was my third number 1 single. And I'm putting the album together all during this time and just it was just a good time, man, because I was making money. And I was able to be creative and just come up with my, different tracks and ideas, man. And the album is crazy because it's a lot of it is just me I'm still a new producer, you know what I mean? If you think about it, because it's only been like a couple of years. But I'm still, I'm not like a super producer or whatever, but I would do all my stuff. And so I was able to come up with whatever ideas I wanted to. I was able to put them down. And Vaughn was like, yo, just go ahead and do what you do. Because, you've already proven yourself with the Let It Roll, HOUSE. So he was there to mix it. So it was relaxed because the majority of the album I did at his house in his studio. Because by the time we're making money, he had bought like a new mixing board, big mixer and all this stuff. So it was a good time, and I did like 2 or 3 tracks I did at a local studio with one of my friends runs. But most of the stuff was done at Vaughn's house. So it was just a good time because I got to just be creative and put whatever I wanted to down. Like if you listen to one song, the actual song Doug Lazy Getting Crazy, it's got a dope hip hop beat, but the lyrics are so corny. It's just when I listened back there, I was like, what was I thinking? But it was just like I was so chill. was just like, like I said, I never had considered myself a lyricist like that. And, it was just a fun album, man. I enjoyed it.
I mean, as a DJ and as a fan, I don't think many people took a lot of, house music with the rapping, like the hip house,
right.
Too serious. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Unless you were like Queen Latifah or Special Ed, who was a hip hop artist and MC doing a house record.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But just like Snap, you know what I mean, or Frank Ski or yourself. I mean, I think everybody understood you weren't MCs, but you were just making good, fun house and club music. So
exactly.
So with that being said, your debut album, Doug Lazy, Getting Crazy, 1990. You also had other records like Ride the Rhythm. You had Can't Hold Back. Talk to me really quickly though about the George Kranz. Hopefully I said his name right. The Din Dada's Doing It record. How did this thing happen?
Just Vaughn hit me up and said, Arthur Baker Arthur Baker did that. I mean, he did this joint I did with Misadventures. That was a whole other thing. But the guys that did they were doing a redo of George Kranz, the classic record, Din Dada. And they used to play in the clubs all the time. And they was like, yo, we want to try and put a vocal on it with Doug. So I actually wrote the lyrics. That they had a house version of it. They sent me the track, and I went and recorded it. Went to New York and recorded it, and it was just like, yo, I had to think of a hook. I always kept my same formula because that I used with Let It Roll, was like use like 3 or 4 verses, and I would have something leading into the hook, and and then the hook would play. So I just did something. Don't confuse it. Then Dada's doing it. That would be like the line going into the hook. And they named it Then Dada's Doing It for my mix, but that was just a lyric that I put down. So I actually just wrote, man. I wrote it and went in the studio and recorded it. And same thing I did with Ride on the Rhythm, which that's one of the best experiences I've had, like as far as doing something with somebody else, man, because, I'm a fan of Masters at Work, Lil Louis Vega and Kenny Dope. Just to be in the studio with them and, working with Mark Anthony, superstar now, but he was coming out. His first joint was the house joint, Ride on the Rhythm. So they were just featuring me as the rapper, man. And I actually wrote those lyrics on the train ride to New York. I went in there and rocked the joint. I was in there in the booth maybe like 5 minutes, and it came out, man. And they hooked it up, man. It's just like. That was I was big fans of theirs anyway, so that was a great time, man. We did that I think at Battery Studios, if I remember, and it was just to this day, man. I'm just legend. It's just a legendary situation, man. That I look back on fondly, It's just that was a big time for me, personally.
I mean, absolutely, and these are all really legendary, hip house classics, or house classics, you know what I mean? So absolutely incredible. These are all timeless records. So, was there anyone else that you worked with or produced that, people may not know? Like, for example, you had mentioned Stezo. I would have never known that, right?
Right.
So, after all the records, you know what I mean? Like, again, you had a lot of house classics. Was there anybody else that you worked with that we may not know about from the production side or even features?
Well, I've done stuff. I was working with Todd Terry, who's actually one of my favorite producers, period. From whether it's house or whatever, because he had all the joints like, the Jungle Brothers joint and Can You Feel It? He's huge.
Absolutely. The legendary
sample bass, legendary.
Yes.
So I actually when the album, he was actually supposed to produce my second album. Nobody really knows that. And we did at least maybe 6 or 7 cuts. And what happened is I got caught up in label politics. This is why I never got a second album. I got caught up in label politics because my first album got right to the edge of where it could, almost to the point where it just blew up. You know what I mean? I didn't hit gold status with Doug Lazy getting crazy, but he had a good amount of sales. But when you get that artist that almost gets there, everybody wants to be the one to take him there. So I had different people at the label wanting me to work with their producers. So not to get into any names, but Todd, when they said Todd Terry, I was like instantly, yo, I'm trying to do work because I'm a fan of his already. So we did some joints, and it wound up not being accepted because of the politics. Even though the tracks were dope, we never got a chance to really finish them. And that's when the Doug Lazy thing started going on the downslide, because it's just label politics, were just crazy back then. Somebody's trying to, you got that person that's trying to take that artist to the next place. But if it's multiple people trying to do that, then they start, bumping heads. Then it just leaves the artist out in the cold. So I literally had to go on standby while all this was getting worked out. And unfortunately, it never got worked out, but I'm still producing. I'm still producing. I did a joint under Vaughn's label, Raise, and it was called Bass Power, which I produced that. The whole thing, did the rap on it, wrote the lyrics that the girl was singing, and we put it out, and it started to blow up. Like on his label, Atlantic actually got that one too. So they actually picked that up, and so I'm still doing stuff, but I'm just like as Doug Lazy, my I hit a brick wall, because I just got caught up in the politics, man, and just I would just being transparent. I guess me at that time I was kind of all over the place and not focused as much as I should be. I can't put all the blame on Atlantic. A lot of the blame could go on me too, because I got discouraged with what was going on, and I tried to get into other things. Maybe I started going back to doing mixing and stuff like that, and I went and got an actual DJ position on the air at WPGC. Before this time I was a mixer, so I actually got a DJ position on the air, and this is where my DJ career started, as far as me being the announcer, the person talking. So because one of the program directors came from Phoenix. His name was Jay Stevens, who's legendary program director. He had played my records in Phoenix, and when he found out I was in DC, he would say, yo, we got to get him on the air. So he's the one that actually brought me in to WPGC as far as being on air. Because I had left the station for a while I was doing Doug Lazy. Right. Because I couldn't do everything and still be the artist. So, I actually got back in the radio, man, and my focus, I lost my focus on the Doug Lazy thing, and nobody was really trying to, you get, once you get on that shelf, man, that shelf is a bad place to be, because then it's somebody literally has to go take you off the shelf and start pushing you again. And then with new artists coming out every time and things changing, so I just kind of got lost in that situation and was never able to do a second album. But it's not that I wasn't doing anything. My focus went elsewhere, and I got into radio. Gotcha. As far as announcing, I've been in radio for years, but as far as being a DJ, so
would you say that mid 90s or whatnot, because you got your first deal in '89, and you dropped all these records. I'm sure it was a whirlwind. So I'm assuming you were Doug Lazy for the duration of the the '90s, I would assume, as an artist. So would you say that what kept you busy from then until now would be the DJing and radio?
The radio kept me busy up until I guess into the 2000s, but really I would have to say producing kept me doing what I was doing, because I actually got in a hip hop group, in '94. Okay. I was in a hip hop group called 3 Steps from Nowhere, and we actually put out a record. We were getting played on Rap City, and I was the producer in that group. It was a dope album too, because I sampled everything, and then we went in the studio and had it replayed. Had people come in and replay stuff. So we were early on doing the actual, the live instruments and stuff along with samples. So this is when I started to actually abandon the Doug Lazy name. The Doug Lazy name did not go into the late 90s. I started abandoning the name maybe around '94, because what happened is when I would do hip hop productions, every time somebody would hear it, they say, yo, it's dope. It's got a little house vibe to it. But what they were going off of was because of the fact I'm Doug Lazy. And at the time, it's like, you were either or. You wasn't going to be a dope house producer and a dope hip hop producer. Very few had got that. There were some people that were doing it, but in my case, everything sounded house. I could make the hardest hip hop beat. And people don't remember, I come from hip hop before I did house.
Right.
So I knew, what I did wasn't, I mean, it could be the hardest beat, but it's just that Doug Lazy stigma attached to it. There's always wound up being like, yo, that's how it sound house. And it wouldn't, it was crazy. So I kind of like got away from that name and just I would go by different names. Like in 3 Steps from Nowhere, I was LZ. Kind of like have that lazy name, but it's LZ and different things like that, man. So it's just really, the production and doing mixes on the air, remixes and actually my talking, my being a DJ on the air, man, was what my focus was from 94 on, and even into the 2000s. So the Doug Lazy, I could officially say Doug Lazy era kind of died with the hip house. As far as when, because hip house, not long after that, it was like gone. It was either house or hip hop, but that genre didn't last very long. So if it had continued, I probably would have a different story. But with it kind of dying out, I kind of like put the name, put the name Doug Lazy on the shelf for a little bit and just did different productions.
Gotcha.
A lot of people think I still did. I was going Doug Lazy. I haven't been even use a Doug Lazy name for years. You know what I mean? I'm doing stuff on to this day. I'm doing stuff on YouTube that I'm known for, YouTube and different social media under a different name that I'm known for. So
and what name is that?
That name, it goes by Knock Squared, KNOCK squared, SQUARED.
So wait, when I introduced you as the legendary Doug Lazy, should I had said AKA Knock Squared?
Oh, you could have. You could have, because people, hey bro, it's two different worlds. There are those that know, like I'll have an occasional comment, yo, Doug, I see you kicking it. That people that go back, because I don't really announce a whole lot. Lately I've been doing it, like even on my Instagram, on my Knock Square thing, I say AKA Doug Lazy.
Right.
I've been starting to put the two together because I realize, yo, it's an audience out there that rock with me that, to this day, like, like you play Let It Roll, they hit me up, I play Let It Roll to this day and it's still banging. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, I must say, just like on Instagram, and I was going to bring this up a little later, but I'll bring it up now because it fits so well. I seen you did your own version of the, the Beyonce, Break My Soul record. Like you did a remix to it. So it's kind of like, I wouldn't just leave that Doug Lazy name out. I wouldn't leave it alone. You know what I mean?
You're right.
Because house music has always been there, a little more commercial at times, underground at times. But with this new reemergence of it with Beyonce's record, it's like those hit records that Doug Lazy made back then kind of come back now just as strong. You know what I mean? And they're timeless classics. So I wouldn't abandon the Doug Lazy name too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right, bro. It's just, it's what you're saying is perfect, because I realized that, even doing that remix, man, people were showing love and
it was dope. But go ahead.
Yeah. And see, my thing, and I've embraced, even lately, man, I just embraced the fact, I just, not toot my own horn or whatever, but I could do any style of music I'm into, I could produce. And, I could do authentic dope house, authentic dope hip hop, whatever. And because I live and breathe like the production, man. I know I just love it so much that, that's why, I hadn't really done that many house beats before I did the Beyonce one, but I was able to put that together because it's in me, and it's been in me for so long that, you even if you walk away for a while, you could come back and tap out joints and be like, yo, that's fire. So
right.
I'm learning to embrace, what you said. It makes sense, because I'm like, yo, the Doug Lazy going on the shelf thing was purely out of frustration, what was going on.
Sure.
And I just left it on the shelf for a long time. But, you know, I started pulling it off and you know, here and there, like on my Facebook page, here and there, I'll hit up, I do a video or this and that. And I mean, you still get those people like if I put a hip hop video, me making a hip hop beat on a Doug Lazy Facebook, so people are like, yeah, I missed that Let It Roll vibe. And you still got that people, but that's gonna happen. So I'm just, I've learned to be like, I'm like, yo, I'm two different personalities. Like, you know, I got Knox Squared, and now I'm doing. I mean, I'm even on TikTok under the Knox Squared, man, and I got like like 640 something thousand people that follow me on there.
Wow.
Because now I've been into this. It's not even nothing to do with music. More so it's just like my comedy side, man. Just like, you know, I've been able to really get my ideas that I've had in my head out, you know, and I found an acceptance for the joke side, the fun side on TikTok, man. It was a breath of fresh air, because it's like I've always liked to, you know, make people laugh also and stuff, man. So if you check that out, you're gonna trip out. If you check out, it goes under Knox Squared though. It's not under Doug Lazy, but I do occasionally do like in my joke videos, I have where I'm playing a beat and maybe like an animal that made a sound, and I'll sample and chop that up and then actually have the video going with it. So that's a whole other world.
Okay, so wait, are you a comedian also, or are you just making, or are you just making funny videos? What?
I'm just, you know, I would call myself a comedian out of respect for comedians.
Right. Okay.
I can tell people this, because I've learned. I have a set of equipment. I have a set software I use to edit my videos. It's not like expensive or anything like that, but I did, even with the thing you see me playing in the Beyonce remix that's called Machine. I've mastered all of these things. I use them so much that once you master something, you can get the ideas in your head out.
Right.
That's why I'm able to get these ideas, like these joke videos. Like I can actually the thing in my head, I could put it together and actually show people what I was actually thinking in my head. And that's where I've been able to get ahead, because I always consider myself like crazy mind. I mean, listen to the Doug Lazy album. If you listen to the album, you feel like, yo, this dude, he got a little craziness to him. You know what I mean? And the title is Doug Lazy Getting Crazy. So I've always been one to just experiment. And that's why I've been able to this day to even still rock out. You know, me being in my mid 50s, being able to be accepted by a younger generation, because I love some of the music that, you know, I'm not one of those people like, man, you know, back in the day, this is trash, because I've always been eager to learn stuff, and you know, I respect the fact that I respect how the producers do stuff today. I know it's a whole different world, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just because it was harder for me to make a beat back in the day, that don't mean I should discount somebody that has it easier, because it's still creativity now going on, you know. So I'm just, I'm able to keep it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about, you made your first beat just cutting tape,
exactly.
Right. Versus now, I see you on Instagram doing that Beyonce remix with the Machine, right?
Exactly.
So I'm assuming that the Machine is a part of your new gear, you know, that you use on the production side, or what you may work with musically.
Bro, I'm 11 years in on Machine. I mean, that's my main thing that I use in the majority of stuff I do, because and the reason is because I've mastered it and I can get the ideas in my head out. So wonderful. That's my main thing, man. And I'm sitting up looking at it right now. Like when the interview over, I'm like, yo, I'm about to make some beats and stuff, because I'm charged up now. You got me charged up and everything.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, again, you know, the production was dope. You know, the fun records. I mean, again, the Doug Lazy records, these hip house records are classics. Not to mention DJ Kool, another legendary DJ, DC, right? Go hip hop. He mentioned your name in his hit record, Let Me Clear My Throat. Right.
Yeah, I always say my biggest record that I didn't do was DJ Kool's record. Because if they don't know me from Doug Lazy, from Let It Roll, they will know me from peace out to CeeLo Flex and Doug Lazy, from DJ Kool,
Yes, sir.
And I to this day, I'm like, yo, thank you, brother.
And again, DJ Kool is a legendary DJ.
Absolutely.
I've worked with
Super
him.
legend.
I work with him. I love him. Shout out to DJ Kool. But
still doing it.
still doing it everywhere. Yep. Producing, making records, touring, DJing,
Absolutely.
everything. And your name will always go down in history as a shout out on DJ Kool's Let Me Clear My Throat. So,
yo, yes indeed. I tell you, they don't know me from my music. They will know me from that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If you heard Let It Roll, no, I ain't heard it. You Let It Roll? No. How about DJ Kool's Let Me Clear My Throat? Peace out to CeeLo. Oh, you Doug Lazy? Yeah. So it's like
right.
It's
so,
like, yeah.
so in knowing that, and in saying that, excuse me, what current projects are you working on? Any new music? Again, I saw that Beyonce Break My Soul remix you were doing, but is there anything else that you're currently working on for the future?
Well, I'm actually going to put an album together. I got a single that I dropped on Spotify. It's different these days. It's not like the wax or whatever. Case in point, I will tell you. A couple of years ago, I did a joint called Church Clap with DJs on DJ Spin and Tommy Davis label and out of Baltimore.
Right.
And that that was my eye-opening experience to times are different, because I'm thinking, I ain't done a record in years, and I put the joint together. It was dope. So I'm thinking, this is gonna be selling and everything. And Spin was like, nah, it ain't like that now. They streaming, and I'm like, what? It's like, so sales were like bare minimum, but it got some streams, but it opened my eyes to like, the world is different now. It's not like people ain't going out buying, CDs and cassettes and vinyl like they were. You know what I mean? So I did a few singles, that are on Track Source. I did a joint Relax Release with, oh my goodness, my brain is Mr. Maurice Eclectic, Mr. Eclectic. My brain is getting old now.
That's all right. It's all right.
But it's just, I did, a couple of joints with Spinning them on their label. So, J Eclectic, so that was the name I did with Relax and Release. So that was a single that came out. So I dropped a couple of singles, but as far as me producing, like the way I did it with the Doug Lazy Getting Crazy, as far as me doing the production and overall stuff, as far as an album, that's what I want to actually do, and put it up for streaming and see if people vibe with it, man. It's more of a vibe now, you know what I mean? And
right.
Get some followers that way, and actually some new people, and some of the people that have been rocking with me can come and check out some of the stuff. Because it won't be the same. See, that's the thing I tell people. It's not gonna be the same. Like, it won't be like a bunch of Let It Rolls, because I'm not really there as far as musically now. I'm like, I'm different. Going over the years of just doing so many different things, but it'll still have that vibe to it. That's what it's all about. You like a Doug Lazy vibe, it'll have that. You know what I mean?
Sure. So I wanted to ask you, again, I had mentioned before, house music has always been a vibe, and it's always been underground, and then it became real mainstream for a moment, and then it kind of went away. It reemerged like with techno, and then later on EDM, right?
Right.
And all of these things, just club music in general. But recently, again, you did a remix for Beyonce's Break My Soul.
Right.
How did you feel about this resurgence of house music when she brought this record out? Did it make you feel good? Did it scare you? Did you not like it? What was your thoughts on it?
Me personally, man, I've seen online a lot of the positive comments and the negative comments about, her dropping that, and also with the Drake situation with him doing the house thing. And it's just
absolutely.
I'm like, yo, this is just my personal thoughts. I'm like, we're in a different time now. So anything that can actually, okay, true, they're dropping stuff that, a lot of people are like, yo, this ain't nothing new. They're getting all this because they're so big, they get all this credit for it. So like some people may not have been familiar with house, but now they are because of Beyonce and Drake or whatever. So I look at it as a good thing as far as getting people in that area to have that house vibe that may have not been there.
Right.
I can only look at it as a positive. Now, when you start getting into politics and stuff, of course, you know, you can get in an argument about that. But I'm like, man, just let the music play. If it's dope, it's dope. Now, if she came out with a house record and it was trash and everybody's going off saying it was great and everything, then people might be like, yo, this ain't, you know, this is what's going on. But,
right, absolutely.
You know, I mean, personally, I think the record, I like the record. You know, I don't dislike it. Even Drake's joints, some of the joints on there are cool, and it's just I look at it as a way to get new people into the fam. You know what I mean? As far as house, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean,
but that's my personal opinion. You know, somebody might be like, you know, Doug tripping. You know, but that's what I think. I mean, now more eyes on house.
Right. Well, that's how I looked at it. You know, I looked at it like, okay, I know it's Beyonce. You know, she's not claiming all of a sudden to be a house artist. You know what I mean? So, and yes, house music been around forever. You know, she's definitely not the first one to do it. However, what I did like about it was that now house is on the radio again.
Right. Exactly.
So now it could open the doors possibly for all the other house legends to make new music again.
Right.
You know, whoever. It just opens the door back up for the sound to say, okay, some new house music can now be mainstream and popular, or now everybody who wasn't a fan or didn't know can go back and search and maybe find all the other house classics, and it all could just come back. You know what I mean? Right. So that's how I looked at it. It was like, I thought it was just good for the culture of house music. So now,
exactly. Yep.
So now, speaking of house music, I wanted to ask you a question before we get out of here.
Okay.
So you know, for you know, a lot of people may not know this, or they might know. Of course, the real house heads know. There's different house sounds from different regions, right?
Right.
Baltimore house sounds different from Chicago house.
Exactly.
New Jersey house sounds different from Detroit house, etc., etc. In your opinion, what is the difference between the different house styles of music?
Oh man, that's a good question. Really, I hate to make this an all-encompassing answer, but I really think it's more more of a vibe and a feel to it. Like Be More House and the Jersey Club, they have a similar sound, but there's differences between them. You know, it's just like differences between Baltimore and Chicago. You know what I mean, or Detroit. And it's more of a feeling. You know, like you said, house is a feeling.
Right.
It's like it's you know what the record is about. Maybe what the record is about. Like you got the Baltimore house, you know, like that, and it might be just sample based with just a couple of, they take a phrase and they sample it. Whereas Chicago they had the piano line with the house beat and they're singing over it. It's more of a it's a hard question to answer, but when I say it's more of a vibe, like you can feel the vibe of whatever area it's coming out of. Like you know, if it's coming out of Chicago, you could feel that what's going on in Chicago from that house track. You know, okay, this is the vibe there. You know, and a lot of the tracks have that same vibe. You know what I mean? And you know, whereas you know might be Baltimore, they have that same vibe, but it's you know, it is what it is. You know, you can get a feel of the area from the music. Just like mine, I don't even know what to rate mine as far as where it's from, because I can't say it's Baltimore, DC, New York, whatever. But I was inspired by, of course, the legend Fast Eddie and Tyree Cooper. Mm-hmm. You know, with you know, turn up the bass, and you know, with Kool Rock Steady. You know, rest in peace to him. And that vibe, I would say that vibe is what put me more in a house mood. As far as when I was doing Doug Lazy, I was looking at that, but it didn't come out like that. It didn't sound like their sound. I just kind of put myself into it, and it was just I don't even know. I mean, you would know better what area you think I'm from than I would, because I'm just like
Well,
I don't know.
Well, so how I kind of looked at it, and again, I'm not an expert, but
Okay.
Baltimore, more up tempo, more hip hop based. You know what I mean? DJ,
Yeah, okay, right.
DJ oriented, right? Break beats and up tempo, similar to Miami bass without the bass, right?
Right.
And then I looked at Chicago, more melodic, almost with a little gospel feel. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know,
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, more
piano and singing.
yeah,
Yep.
more R&B singing, gospel flavor, more piano, a lot of rhythmic, and Detroit kind of a little mixture. You know what I mean? And but yours, I just looked at yours as like it's like hip house. It's like when I heard it, I said, okay, he must have a passion for hip hop.
Yeah.
As well as an inspiration for house music, and it kind of blended together, and it kind of created the Doug Lazy sound. You know what I mean?
And see, on this day on Vinyl Esquire with DJ Rip, I have found what my sound is. Thank you. That's a good description, because yeah, that's exactly me. Yo, because I'm sampled like I said, I started with sampling and loops and stuff, and I mean, Let It Roll is Let It Roll is a sample, you know what I mean? The vocal sample and the bell loop. So yeah, man, you put it that way, because I've never been able to really put my sound in where I could describe it as far as where it's from an area. But that's a great point that you said, man, because really, that is me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, people would categorize it ghetto house, or or then you got you got hip house, or you got deep house, and you got acid house, and it was all these different kind of subgenres, right? But when I look at the artist, I say, okay, let me look at Frankie Knuckles, and listen to his music, and it sounds it's not hip hop at all. Right.
No.
However, it's house. Then your music, or even Frank Ski. You know what I mean? Listening to all of his records, it was kind of like you could tell there was a hip hop bass there with him. And then there was some records that were just straight house. You know what I mean? So again. And I just wanted to ask you, because there is so many different subgenres and styles of house music that a lot of people may not even understand or know. You know what I mean? In 2022, and there was a lot of mainstream, house hit records too. You know what I'm saying? So anyhow, I just wanted to ask you what, how you felt and what your opinion of, of the different styles of house music. But I would definitely say that Doug Lazy's style would be considered hip house. A lot of hip hop, a lot of house. Kind of a blend, especially on the records you would rhyme on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So again, it was hip house. So with all that being said, Doug, now, can you tell me what's in the future for Doug Lazy? Now, you said, you've been doing some things on Instagram, on TikTok. I want you to kind of promote that as well. But tell me what's in the future for Doug Lazy.
Man, really now, even just from, what we were talking about, I think it's a good time to actually really, get some more joints out there, some Doug Lazy joints out there, which is, like me talking to you all before the interview, I just moved, and we were in a situation where I wasn't able to really be as creative, but now we're in our own spot, and I got my own studio room and everything, and I'm hooking up. So it's really, the sky's the limit, man, because I have so many ideas, and I want to drop some Doug Lazy and actually do an album, not just some singles. Actually do an album, the same formula. It's not sound-wise, but the same formula as far as me producing it and everything, and doing the lyrics and everything, as far as just like I did the first album, and getting that out, having it all be, I guess all be me as far as what I'm doing now and where my head is now, and see if the world accepts it. You know what I mean? I'll drop it out there. I mean, there'll be some stuff that may sound kind of like, the vibe that you used to. Most likely it won't be the same vibe.
Right.
But, I'm still, that early on Doug Lazy, I still got that part, some of them parts in me, but I have newer things, also, so it's just, I'm really, my focus will be dropping an LP or album, whatever they call it, to stream and just seeing where I fit in now, man, and seeing maybe getting some new ears since the time is right now with the big name artists dropping house and more people being familiar.
Right.
Really just that and just to have fun, man, and be creative. I mean, the best time of my life I had, man, was doing that. I could say the most relaxed, creative time I had in my life, period, was when I was doing the Doug Lazy Getting Crazy album. Because I was able to, whatever stresses came at me in life, I could brush them off because I was doing what I loved, and and I would love to get back to that point. That would be good. But
right.
If that's possible, because like I said, it's new times, but I have so many, I do so many different things, man, that it's just if the actual songs don't bring any, far as growth, as far as like, if I'm going to say income, but as far as me being able to focus totally on that, I have a whole bunch of other stuff I'm doing, online, so I can really sit back and enjoy it, when it comes out, man. So it's just, it's a weird way it is.
Absolutely. So, so no new projects, but you're definitely working towards some new music and some new things. Now, would it be under Doug Lazy? Would it be under another name?
I actually have Knox Squared. I'm doing music under Knox Squared, which is more hip hop based.
Okay.
And under Doug Lazy, I have a single that I put it's called How We Play. You can check it out on Spotify. That was maybe like maybe a month and a half ago I put it up there. But it's not me as far as doing lyrics like you're familiar with. It's more so because, like I said, I'm a producer and I do some instrumental joints with samples in them and stuff like that. So I mean, you could check that out. But that'll be that was just something I wanted to put up to stream, you know what I mean? So it's called How We Play, and but the album will have me vocally, doing my thing. So, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay. What about anything?
I'm looking at that.
What about anything in radio? You got a long radio career.
Yeah, man. I've when I got to the Atlanta area, I got into radio. I did as far as production department, putting the commercials and the imaging and stuff you hear. I do that also. Mm-hmm. And I did that for a year, man. And I said, I left, and that was my, I guess, my farewell to radio.
Gotcha.
I left on good terms with the station, but it just wasn't in me like it was before, because the joy wasn't there. It felt like work. You know what I mean?
Right,
it didn't have the same vibe as early days in radio, where we were just like, we were living for it.
Right.
So but it's a different time now. But as far as radio, now I do still do voice work. I do different things online. Like I have a voice tag service where you hear, like, you hear those beats of play, and they'd be like, we got London on the track, like his tag and stuff like that. I do stuff like that, like for different online producers.
Okay.
And I've been doing that for 10 years. That's my that's at knoxhouse.com. So that's my business that I do. I do that, and voicetaggods.com that's a company I work with. So we have, with the Voice Tag Gods site, between the artists on there, we have tags on some of the biggest name songs out. If you go to voicetaggods.com and check them out, you'll see, like, we pretty much, a lot of the tags you hear on the hits and stuff, we've some of the artists have done those. The voice talent on that site have done those. So it's really it's just another I guess online thing I love doing, because I've always been able to, from DJing I went into voice work, and that's where it is now. I do that.
Okay.
and different things, man. It's just, but still producing, and if people want to see the hip hop side, you can check out Knox Squared. Like I said, the AKA Knox Squared. I got YouTube videos up, and I'm making beats all the time. So
wow.
I'm still here, brother.
Well, obviously. I mean, so
I ain't going nowhere.
So again, you just dropped a few new businesses and new things. So please, before we get out of here, promote anything that you got going on. Please go ahead.
Well, like I said, with the the voice tag, you check out at knoxhouse.com, and also Voice Tag Gods voicetagguys.com, and just with the I've actually opened up a site where I teach the thing you saw me using in the Beyonce mix. I actually have a site called Machine World where I have members there, and I teach a course. I have courses, different videos of workflow. I have members there, and people are joining all the time. And that's a love of mine also, because I get to actually, you get a group that really supports you, and they like what you're doing, and they follow you. You keep those people close, and a lot of the Machine World people, they vibe with me. They came from the YouTube and they wanted more of what I teach, so they actually joined, and they paid and joined, and they're part of the family now. So
wow,
that's a big thing, and that's I'm actually growing that site also. So it's just it's been up for 2 years. So it's just, man, a lot of online stuff. Most of the online stuff I do is what I just said, and also, man, just being a family man, and a dad and a husband, and just trying to enjoy life, man, and these are stresses,
Yes,
and also,
sir.
I wanted to say real quick, I want to send, you had mentioned Frank Ski. I want to send a shout out to Frank Ski. People don't know that Frank Ski was the first person to play Let It Roll on the air. He played the dub version. I actually took it to the station in Baltimore. I had known Frank from EBB days, but it was at V103. I took it to him, and he played the on the ride. I gave it to him, and he said, "Yo, okay, I'm gonna let my girl check it out. She's a house head." And then I left the station, and on the ride back, I was on the parked. I was at a stoplight, and a car next to me was playing something that sounded familiar. And I rolled the window down, and he was playing the dub version of Let It Roll. So that's the first time that, even before I worked on radio, but even before anybody played it. A lot of people don't know that. Some people claim that at first, but Fransky was literally the first person to play the dub version of Let It Roll, because he got it off the test pressing, and so I shout out to him, and also to the Latin Rascals, Albert Cabrera and Tony Moran. I said Aldo earlier. It's Albert Cabrera and Tony Moran. That was a big life change, man. With their situation, man, and it's just everybody, man, that's had a effect on my life, man, all the way from back then all the way to right now. Vinyl Esquire with DJ Rip. I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yo, this is fun. Like I said, I'm charged up.
Yeah, I mean, look. First off, I gotta say, mad love, shout out to Frank Ski. I've worked with him as well. I love Frank, incredible DJ, artist, producer, hip house legend, however you want to categorize him. Absolutely. Shout out to Frank Ski, Latin Rascals. I mean, it's enough said. I mean, these guys were phenomenal DJs, editors, artists. The production, they radio, they influenced so many people, especially in the mega mix and that radio world, right?
Absolutely.
So absolutely salute to all of them. So listen, with that being said, Doug, how can our listeners continue to follow you?
Well, you can actually follow me on Instagram. It's official Doug Lazy, and also under Knock Squared, KNOCK squared, like E = MC squared. You can follow me on there, because I like a lot of the different content I'll have between both of the pages. But whether it's Knock or Doug, it's still me. So you can check me out, and I'm still doing it, man. I got my YouTube. I'm under Knock Squared, and finally, if you like the comedian side, Rip, I want you to check out the TikTok. You'll see what I mean. Where if you like that, under Knock Squared at TikTok, and like we're growing on there also. So hey, it's just, that's me, man.
I'm on it. Well, listen, Doug Lazy, I want to thank you for allowing me to interview you on Vinyl Esquire. Vinyl Esquire is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture, honors our legends, and you are a legendary DJ. You're a legendary producer, a house icon, and the hit records that you made, they're timeless. So I want to thank you for allowing me to interview you on Vinyl Esquire. You have been listening to the legendary Doug Lazy, a.k.a. Knock Squared.
Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, the podcast